Hello, hello everyone. Hello, and welcome to today's Q&A. I hope that you are doing amazing when you catch this live in and through here. Happy Monday, y'all. So I am, if you can hear me and see me well, can you let me know? If you can hear me and see me well, can you let me know? Drop like a 2 in the chat if you can hear me and see me well. On IG, we are on LinkedIn, and we are on YouTube. So if you can hear me well and see me well, drop a 2 in the chat. I see some hearts on IG. Hey, friends. Hi. Listen, I am looking forward to connecting with y'all today because y'all had questions surrounding how to prepare for a layoff. So if you've been following my stories, I asked you what were some of the things that you wanted information about, and the layoffs was the glaring topic. Now, I went live last week to discuss what to do if you've already been laid off and how to prepare. So you may want to go watch that live. But many of you were like, Suze, but what happens now? Thank you so much for the 2s. Thank you so much for the 2s. I love it so much. Thank you. So you guys can hear me and see me well. So now the next question was, okay, Suze, so now that we know that the layoffs are coming, or I've been laid off, but what are the warning signs? Like, how should I prepare for, my camera's losing it on IG. But the question has been, how should I prepare? What are some of the warning signs? How do I know? And what are my next steps? So here's what I'm going to do. If this is your first time catching a live with me, welcome. My name is Susanna Briscoe-Alba, lead career strategist at Dunamis Coaching and Consulting Services. And we teach you how to land 6-figure roles through leadership development and career strategy. Today's live is going to be specific to career strategy and what to expect in this type of environment, especially if you are if you're concerned with what a layoff could look like in this type of season, okay? If you see me looking off a little to the side, it's because I have my notes and I want to make sure that I can give you all of the tea. If this is not your first time rocking with me, if this is not your first time, if you are true to this tribe, I want you to drop a 1 in the chat and tell me where you are watching me from, okay? If you are not new to this, okay, I want you to drop a 1 in the chat and tell me where you are watching me from. But if you are new to this, I want you to drop a 3 in the chat. If you are new, I want you to drop a 3 in the chat and tell me where you are watching me from. If you are new to our squad, okay, I want you to drop a 3 in the chat and tell me where you're watching me from. So I see New Jersey is in the building, Texas is in the house, Atlanta is in the building. So here's what we're going to do as I get my notes up and ready. Here's what I want you to do. If this is your first time catching a live, I'm going to encourage you to have something to take notes with, because for the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to be giving you a lot of tea and I don't want you to miss it, okay? For those of you who are not new to this, but you are true to this squad, I want you to help me welcome the 3s that are in the building, okay? So if you are a 1, you are true to your girl, to this tribe that we have built, to this squad. Help me welcome the 1s. Help me welcome the 3s that are in the chat, okay? Let them know what to expect, but definitely please make sure that you have something to take notes with, because I really want this to be a powerful time together, and I want to make sure that you walk away with actionable steps, okay? So like that, you know what to do, where to go next, and so on and so forth, okay? I'm going to move quickly, and I will save this live so like that you can go back to it, or you can share it with someone else. All right. So again, my name is Susanna Briscoe-Alba. I am the lead strategist at Dunamis. And one of the questions that we've been seeing a lot at our organization is folks who have either been laid off from their job, or there's been a reduction in force, and they're very concerned, or they're currently employed and they're trying to figure out, like, what do I do next? How do I prepare? I'm not sure if this is going to impact me. And so my hope is to be able just to give you some insights on what you can do, what to expect, and just really give you practical things that you can do. The first thing that I want to talk about is warning signs, okay? Warning signs. And the warning signs may be subtle, but sometimes they may be immediate. And so you need to be paying attention to what some of those warning signs are. Some of those warning signs include budget cuts and spending freezes. Okay, that's usually one that tends to happen. And here's the thing, that when it comes to budget cuts and spending freezes, what companies are trying to assess is what are our need to haves and what are our nice to haves. Need to haves and nice to haves. And when you're trying to differentiate that within an organization, you'll also start to see, which we've seen publicly here in the United States, is an increase in performance reviews, okay? Or a lack of performance reviews for that matter, okay? So let me help you understand. The first thing is budget cuts and spending freezes. That's usually a part of the process when there is a restriction coming, when they're trying to kind of manage their purse strings. That usually is followed by an increase in performance reviews. You're going to start to get questions like, what is it that you do here? Why do you do that? How is it that you've been trained? Who's your manager? Can you give me details surrounding what your everyday looks like? Okay. And in the United States, that has happened quite a bit, both in the public sector, in the private sector, and even in the government level. That has been something that we've been seeing quite a lot. Okay. So when you are trying to assess kind of like, where is this coming from, start paying attention to the cues, okay? And then the other thing that tends to happen is that you'll start to see leadership restructuring. So all of a sudden there's like assessing job descriptions, and there's teams being moved around. There's language thrown around, like we need to make certain things level and make certain things clearer, and so on and so forth. Once you start paying attention to those cues, or you're starting to hear that with more frequency, I need you to start to prepare. Okay? I need you to start to prepare. And not because I want you to operate from a place of fear, but I want you to operate from a place of an enterprise of one. Because guess what? These companies are not going to give a full notice to their employees. They're just going to call you for a quick chat on a Friday afternoon, and then all of a sudden you no longer have a role, or your role no longer exists. Start also paying attention to roles that start showing up on job boards, and you're like, wait a minute, but I do this position. Because some of y'all have told me about that. And I have seen that, and not because there's a need, but because all of a sudden there's a lot of restructuring happening. There's a lot of that language kind of floating around the environments in which you're in. Okay. The other thing that tends to happen is that there is a merger or an acquisition. Okay. And mergers and acquisitions, remember what I told you about nice to have or need to haves. A merger is pretty much when two companies come together, and typically there's in each of these companies, there are folks who are like doing the same role at company Y and company X, but now that they've merged, they're trying to assess the employees from company Y and company X and identify who is the best to keep. Okay. So I want you to be aware of those kinds of things. This is why I'm always talking about making sure that your resume is ready, that your LinkedIn is up to speed, that you're having communication and networking effectively. Okay? Is this making sense? If you got it, I want you to type "got it" in the chat. If you got it, I want you to type "got it" in the chat. Thank you. For those of you who are commenting on IG, thank you for sharing your perspective, because this also helps the rest of our community to pay attention. Because sometimes I feel like there's a lot of talk online and people just like, there's a lot of people talking a whole lot of nothing. Okay. So I want you to be prepared. Okay. So we talked about warning signs and y'all are telling me got it. The reason that I'm always telling you to make sure that your resume is up to date, that I talked about making sure you have a personal, that you have a portfolio that's up to speed, that you're keeping track of the work that you're doing, is because this is what we're witnessing in real time. And it breaks my heart because many folks are just not trained to assess the environment from this perspective and from this vantage point. Okay. So I need you to be ready. I need you to be ready. All right. So y'all are saying, got it. Beautiful. Got it. Got it. Got it. Beautiful. I love that you are understanding. And this is why every month we host a resume bootcamp. So like that you are prepared. Because since we never know when it's going to be, the last thing that I need you to do is, or the last thing that I want to happen to you is that you get laid off and now you have this incredible sense of fear and dread and overwhelm because you just weren't prepared. And no shade, but this is why I want to make sure that you have all of the tools at the ready. Okay, so I gave you warning signs. And we're having another one because typically the question is, when is the next one? The next resume bootcamp is happening in May. And if you comment the word prep on IG, PREP, if you comment the word prep, then you can join us, get on our email list, because once registration opens, we'll send you an email. So like that, you can register all the things, you can get all the information. All right, so we got the warning signs. I'm going to try to put it here so like that you guys can see it. Now listen. Your girl is one of those people who tries to multitask, and I got thick fingers, okay? So work with me. So if you comment the word prep, you can get on our email list to join us for the May resume bootcamp. Lord Jesus, hope you go to email list. Okay. All right. If you do not get the information on IG, then please let me know. But we're hosting, my phone is losing it. We're hosting it in May, okay? But if you want to get on our email list, I'm going to put it in the comments on YouTube and LinkedIn. It's just going to our website and just get on the list. Okay. All right, y'all got it. So we talked about what are the warning signs. What are the warning signs that you should be paying attention to? We talked about budget freezes or budget cuts. We talked about increased performance reviews. All of a sudden, everybody has questions about what you do and how you do it, okay? Leadership restructuring or mergers and acquisitions. Okay, so I want you to be aware of those things. Now, what are your immediate steps? Because one of the things that I encourage and I strongly believe in is making things super easy and practical. So once you start to see those warning signs, what are your immediate next steps? Your immediate next steps is to update your resume and your LinkedIn profile. Update your resume and your LinkedIn profile. And I encourage you to do this every quarter, like every 3 months. And I don't have time to break down why, but I encourage you, if you are starting to notice these types of things and these types of behaviors at your organization, I encourage you to start updating your resume and your LinkedIn profile. That's the first thing. The second thing that I am going to encourage you to do is to gather your performance documents. Okay. So if you have performance reviews, that are happening at your organization, my recommendation is to make sure that you have a copy of those. You should. Okay. They should, like once you go through a performance review, when I was a hiring manager and I was doing this for my staff, we had to provide them with a copy of the performance review. They would sign it. I would sign it. Everybody would be on the same page. But you want to make sure that you have those performance reviews, because when you're working on updating your resume, when you're working on updating your LinkedIn profile, what we find when we are engaging with our clients is that they're just like, I don't remember what I did in my role. So what they give me is their job description. And the reason that some of y'all struggle with your resume is because you're putting your job description functions on your resume, and you're wondering why folks aren't calling you back. Because we're not looking necessarily for function, we're looking for impact. So remember when I told you in the warning signs, they are trying to assess who's a nice to have and who's a need to have. If your resume only tells me the function of your role, then you are a nice to have. When we have extra budget, then maybe it'll be nice to have somebody to do that. But if your resume is telling me about the impact that you've made, then I can assess whether or not the impact that you've made is going to benefit the bottom line. Okay? It's going to benefit the bottom line. And please, for the love of all things holy, do not follow the recommendations that people have been sharing about like putting the job description on your resume and then putting it real small and that'll help the ATS. Don't do that. Don't do that. That's not going to help you. That's just going to stress you out. So please, if you are updating your resume, you can use your performance documents, especially if you're the one that's always getting meeting expectations or exceeding expectations. That's the type of language that you want to put on your resume. Also, clear indicator of what you should be putting on your resume as well is if you are the one that is always training the manager or training the newbies, you obviously have a framework that is helping other people, which is why they're coming to you. But when you get to me and I'm asking you questions, sometimes y'all don't know how to articulate that, but it's on your performance review. So you want to make sure that you are ready. And if you have not had a performance review in, I would say, over a year, then you need to lead that train. You need to get real strategic and get time on your calendar or on your manager's calendar, more specifically your manager's calendar, to review the functions of your role and identify what is the impact that you've made. The reason why you want to do that is twofold. How many of us have worked for managers and they have heard things like, oh, I didn't know you did that. I wasn't aware that you were working on that. I know I've had that. If that's happened to you, I want you to put a 5 in the chat, where like they're not even aware totally of all of the aspects of what you do. If that's happened to you, I want you to put a 5 in the chat while I grab some water. Y'all, I'm teaching y'all. So yeah, see, we're getting 5s in the chat. The reason that becomes so important is because if you've not had a review, then when those warning signs that I was talking about before, where people are like, what is it that you do? How is it that you do that? All this other stuff, immediately people will forget. So you need to make sure that you have those conversations often. And again, I'm going to encourage you to make sure that you're doing this at least once a quarter. And this doesn't have to be a long, drawn out process. You just want to make sure that you are visible so that your impact is also visible. Okay. So again, immediate steps, update your resume and your LinkedIn, get your performance reviews all the way together, because that will help to inform the information that you put on your resume and your LinkedIn profile. Save important contacts. Okay. Save important contacts, especially if you are of the school of thought that you plan on networking afterward. You should not be networking when you are in need and in desperation. I'm going to say that again for the people in the back. You should not only be networking when you are in need and desperation. You know why? Because that's going to come through on your conversations. So you should not be reaching out to people only when you have a need, because that's not fair to them. And if people were reaching out to you only when they had a need, your cutoff game would be so strong. Ooh, you would be like, oh, here comes Susanna again, coming to ask me for something. So you should be saving some of your contacts and engaging in conversations with them. Okay? Make sure that you're paying attention to those things, because it should not be that you only reach out to people when you only need that. The other thing, and 2 more things that should be immediate steps that I don't find too many people talk about, is research what are the severance packages for your organization. You should know that information. And typically that is found in your employee handbook. Research what your severance packages are, and then calculate your freedom number. Oh my gosh. Calculate your emergency funds. That's what I call your freedom number. If you are not aware of that, you are going to be making decisions stressed AF. And a stressed mind and a burdened mind cannot make clear decisions. Okay? So let me go over what are some of the immediate steps that you should be taking. And then I'm going to recap everything and take a couple of your questions. So immediate steps, update your LinkedIn profile and your resume. Gather your performance documents. Save your important contacts so that you can network with intention. And then research severance packages or policies and calculate your freedom number, also known as your emergency funds. Okay? And the last thing that I'm going to add is make sure you have a brag book. Make sure you have a brag book. Document your achievements because you are powerful beyond measure. And that's an affirmation for somebody. I want you to write that down where you can see it, where you can repeat it, where you can have it in front of you, because when the emotions start to get the best of you, you can look at it and remember, I am powerful beyond measure. But you will not be able to tap into that power if you're always stressed out, because it's going to drive you nuts. Okay, so let me recap very quickly. What were the warning signs and then what were your immediate steps? Warning signs: when you're trying to identify if a layoff is coming, you want to pay attention to budget cuts and spending freezes. You want to pay attention to increased performance reviews. And this can be in form of an email. Can you tell me about your position and what you do? Or tell me what were the last 5 projects you worked on and what was their outcome? Pay attention. Okay. Leadership restructuring. That's another warning sign. Leaders, for those of you who are managers, here's another tidbit that I didn't share before. But for those of you who are managers, and I can tell you this with full confidence because this happened to me, reduced communication. For those of you who are leaders, supervisors, you're responsible for a team. Pay attention to reduced communication. Because if you are all of a sudden getting pulled out of meetings that you were frequently a part of, something's going on. And sometimes it happens by mistake. But sometimes when it starts to happen with a lot of frequency, you have moved from a need to have to a nice to have. Pay attention, especially for those of you who hold leadership positions. Okay. And then the other warning sign that I talked about was company mergers and acquisitions. They're not going to need 2 people doing the exact same job. So this is why you need to be ready. This is why you should be engaging in conversation. How do you do this? You do it by making sure that you have your resume and your LinkedIn profile updated. Again, we are going to be hosting a resume bootcamp in May. If you comment the word prep on IG, Susanna the bot will send you the information so you can get on the email list and be able to get registered for that event. Secondly, gather all your performance reviews and documentation. You should have a copy of that. Whether they were good or not, you should have a copy of that, okay? Thirdly, make sure that you have saved important contacts so that you can network with intention, okay? Research your company's severance packages and policies. Those are found in your employee handbook. Or you can reach out to HR, depending on how comfortable your relationship is with HR, you can ask for that information. But typically you can find that in your employee handbook. If you don't know where your employee handbook is, friend, we have bigger fish to fry. Because I am always stunned at how many people don't even read the employee handbook. And then you get surprised with some of the policies. It's been in the handbook the whole time. I digress. And then make sure that you are calculating your freedom number, which is your emergency fund. You should not have to wait until you are laid off to identify what or how much you need to live month over month. That is a stressful place to be in. Okay, so those are your immediate steps and those are your warning signs. Now, prior to this live, I had asked in my stories, ask me a question. And so I'm going to answer some of those questions. And then if you have questions and you're joining me live, either on LinkedIn, YouTube, or on IG, you can ask your questions. On IG, I want you to use the question bubble. So like that, I don't miss answering your question. Please ask your question using the question bubble. On YouTube and on LinkedIn, you can put your questions in the chat. Okay, so let me get to some of the questions that I got before. One of the questions that I got was, how do I approach my HR office? So this person has a medical accommodation and they've put this individual on a schedule in terms of how often they can use the restroom as it relates to their medical accommodation. Here's another thing that I'm going to encourage you to pay attention to. That sounds like highly, what's the right word? That just sounds really weird. I'm trying to find the right, like, super professional term. But if they got you on a potty break schedule and you have a medical accommodation, that just sounds like it's really out of left field. And you probably should get like some legal support there, because that sounds real weird to me. I would have either a conversation with HR, a conversation with my manager, because what? How you gonna tell me how many times I'm gonna use the bathroom? Also, why are you tracking me like that? That just, again, it don't sound right. That sounds really weird to me. I'm just saying. So just pay attention to some of those things. Like that to me is an excessive form of micromanagement. Like, what? What you mean I can't use the bathroom? You being hella weird. All right, let me see what other question we have. So does the years of experience on your resume reveal your age? If you are not careful, yes. During the resume bootcamp, I break down how much experience you should be listing on your resume. Not all things need to be on your resume. That's another thing that I think that people are, again, just trying to, you're trying to do too much when you're trying to list every single thing that is showing up on or that you've done over your career. My biggest encouragement to our online squad and to our clients is make sure that the experience that you're listing on your resume is relevant. It should be relevant to the position that you are applying for. And not all positions that you are applying for need to know every single detail. Okay, so I would say make sure that it's relevant and that is necessary to the role that you are applying to. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. Let's see, what other question do I have here? I'm trying to get to y'all's questions. Again, if you can put it into the question bubble, then I'll have a better way of keeping track of your questions. Next question is how to react when your manager is trying to frame you by not giving you opportunities. How do you react? How do you react when your manager is trying to, I guess, sabotage you by not giving you opportunities? What I would encourage you to do, my love, if that is happening to you, there's two ways that I would leverage that. The first is I would start to pay attention to what are some of those opportunities that you feel you're being bypassed for. And then the second thing is I would start to pay attention to what are some of those roles that you're getting bypassed for. Are they hot on the market right now? And I would start to apply for those positions. And the reason that I would start to apply for those positions, especially if you can get an interview and an offer, is that then you can use that as leverage. That's how I would leverage that. But if you are finding yourself where you have a supervisor that is constantly trying to micromanage or trying to sabotage you from opportunities, that is a giant red flag, and I would encourage you to start looking. Let's see. Question from YouTube is, as an entrepreneur looking to get back into corporate, I keep getting asked, how will I manage my clients if hired? Well, first of all, one of the things that I encourage for my accent is really trying to come out today. If you are an entrepreneur and you're trying to get back into corporate, the thing that I would mention on your resume, I would position that a little bit differently, because as a hiring manager, and I'm gonna give you honest opinion as a hiring manager. The reason that you keep getting that question is because they're likely concerned that you will have divided focus and that eventually you will leave the company. And I can tell you, as a hiring manager, we do not want to be at the hiring table every 6 months. So for entrepreneurs who are looking to get back into corporate, I would talk about systems that you have in place. I would talk about how you would be focused and strategic when you are on the clock for the organization. And I would even go as far to share how you have grown so that you can bring that same level of value and impact and entrepreneurial mindset to the role that you have. For my entrepreneurs that are looking to go back into our corporate world, my love, you at any given point, you are the CEO, you are the marketing, you are the hiring manager, you are the CFO. Like, you've played many roles in your organization, in your business. Speak to that. Those are not skills that everybody has. And not everybody is called or ready to lead the life of an entrepreneur. Please don't be fooled by what you see on social. Okay. Some of these people on social media, they're showing you like their bank statements and how much money they made and all this other stuff. That's not always real, y'all. Okay. And in this type of market, don't leave your job unless you have something that is very specific that is going to keep you secure. That's all I'm going to say to that. But as an entrepreneur, I would encourage you to speak to your systems, your ability to think creatively, because many times entrepreneurs, we don't always have endless resources or endless budget like some companies do. So you've learned to make something out of nothing. That's a skill. Speak to that. And so if they're asking you, how will you manage your clients if you are hired? I would encourage you to start speaking about how you leverage your ability to stay focused when you're on the clock. Okay. But that was an excellent question. Thank you, Kim. All right. Next question I get is, how can I address, how can I address the fact that I spent the past 3 years working outside of my field while waiting for my green card as an immigrant has been difficult while looking for as an immigrant, it has been difficult while looking for transition again into a corporate role. So Ms. Gonzalez, what I'm going to say is, when you are looking to go into that role and you've been outside of the industry for 3 years, it's really about the way that you're able to frame your experience outside of the industry. So what new skills did you learn while you were outside of the industry that can now be applied to the industry that you want to go into? What new connections have you made that would be of value, that make you different than the rest of the candidates that have been there? What skill set have you been able to develop again that is stronger and different than the rest of the candidates that perhaps they are going to encounter? So it doesn't necessarily need to be that you talk about that you've been out of the industry for 3 years. It's that you have been trying to level up your skill set so that you can apply your expertise in a stronger way. Listen, I'm trying to tell y'all, if you come to the boot camp, if you get on the email list, these are some of the things that I teach you how to do. Because I think a lot of it has to do with what you have, the narrative that you've been telling yourself in here. Okay. And so sometimes the story that we've been telling ourselves in our head is so much bigger than the actual questions that we're going to get on an interview. And I don't want that to scare you. So just because you've been out of the industry for 3 years does not mean that you have not learned something new. Does not mean that you have not sharpened your skill. Does not mean that you're not able to speak about your abilities in a way that sets you apart from everybody else. Okay. Let's see. The next question, I hope that that was helpful for you. Next question is, how do I address the gap on my resume? Okay, so how do I address the gap on my resume? So if you have a gap on your resume, especially if you've been laid off or you have been a part of a reduction in force, it's all about the language that you use. Just because you have had a layoff does not mean that you are not hireable and does not mean that you don't have any skill. So if it were me, what I would say is that due to a recent restructure in my organization, my role was impacted. And that is why I have this layoff. However, the value and the skills that I bring to this organization and to this position are ... And then I would follow that up with, you are going to see a lot of candidates that perhaps are a good fit for this position. Help me understand what is a top candidate in your eyes. This question becomes so revolutionary for you. I hope y'all wrote that down. This question becomes so revolutionary for you, my love, because it's going to give you insight into what they consider top talent. And again, helps you to position yourself as such. So just because you have a gap does not mean that you are not hireable. It's about how you can explain your gap, number one, and don't pitch a tent there. Okay. Explain I was impacted by a restructuring in my organization. That is language, y'all, that we are hearing time and time again. So it's not going to be unfamiliar to us as hiring managers. It's just true of the industry. And any hiring manager who makes a decision off of a person who has been laid off, when we are in the midst of people getting laid off left and right, then there's a you issue. There's a them issue, not a you issue. That's the first thing. And secondly, I probably would not want to work for that person anyway. So take that pressure off of yourself, my love. Okay. I hope that was helpful for y'all. Let's see. This is going to be the last question that I am going to address because I want to be respectful of your time. Let me see. Where did my questions go? Y'all, I don't know what happened, but now I can't see the questions. One of the questions that I do see is, when will Dunamis be holding in-person events? I don't know, y'all. I don't know if I'm going to do another in-person event. I would love to. I love meeting people in person. I really do. I love teaching in person, which is one of the reasons why I want to do more conferences, like speak at more conferences. So if you know of a really good conference that you think I would be a good fit for, send your girl a DM. But yeah, I don't know that I'm going to do another one in person. And if we do, again, you want to be on the email list. So if you comment the word prep, you'll be able to get on our email list. You get all that kind of information. So listen, thank you for rocking with me today. I hope that this was helpful. If this was helpful for you, can you drop a 6 in the chat? If this was helpful for you, I want you to drop a 6 in the chat and let your girl know. Give me some hearts, drop some fire in the chat. Let me know. And if you are watching me, let me know also, what was your biggest takeaway from our conversation today? What was your biggest takeaway from our conversation today? Hey, 6s are showing up. Hey, gang. I love it. I love it so much. Yeah, no, this topic was definitely something that I feel like, again, not too many people talk about it from the perspective that I feel like I shared with y'all. And I really hope that this was helpful. So I'm glad I'm seeing these 6s. There's some fire showing up. Wonderful. So yeah, if this was helpful to you, Don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone else so like that they are prepared. And I am going to catch y'all on the next. Pay attention to my stories, okay? Because in my stories is where I poll you and I ask you kind of what topics do you want to hear more about. Layoffs, like what to do after a layoff and how to be aware of a layoff coming were the two that showed up the most. May, we will be hosting our resume bootcamp. Make sure that you're on the email list so that you can get information on how to register and what to do. Registration will be opening very soon. As a matter of fact, I feel like registration may be opening tonight. So make sure that you're on the email list so you can stay up to date on what we have going on. I love y'all, and I will catch you on the next one. All right. Bye, everybody. See you later, friends.